Two junk journals in two totally different styles, created simultaneously. Welcome to another episode of my little series here on my channel, in which I want to show you that inspiration is everywhere and that you can take any inspiration that you got from somewhere and transfer that to your own junk journal or other papercraft project in your very own unique style. In today's episode, we are going to talk about stamping, as you can guess. I want to show you some really cool ways to include stamping to your junk journal pages as part of the background. Hi there, this is Luise Heinzel. Thank you very much for joining me today. If you perhaps have missed the previous videos of this series, then please check out the info box. There's a whole playlist where you can check out how we came to this stage of the project and where you can watch all of my thoughts behind this project here. I'm creating a clean journal and a grungy journal at the same time in this series, and I'm showing you step by step how you can achieve your own style by using different techniques. And today we are going to talk about stamping. And what I want to mention in the very beginning of this video, what we are going to do today is still part of creating a background, making your pages interesting. In the last video, we have stenciled to our pages. Why is this upside down? It's like this. We have stenciled to our pages to create a really interesting look to our pages, but this is still part of creating a background. In the meantime, I have stenciled a little bit more, so while I'm explaining what I did, I show you the pages. Some of this, what you can see here, has happened in my German video. You know, I always record my videos in German and in English, and for this project, I've divided the pages in half for the videos, so some of those patterns that you can see here on the pages I've made in the German video. But I also decided that I want to have some more stenciling after finishing the other video. And that's something that I can recommend and, encourage you to, because when you are in your process and you are doing something, no matter if it's stenciling or stamping or whatever, then after you have finished that, I mean, those things are relatively time consuming, even if we can find ways to make it a little bit faster and not so time consuming, it takes time, It's not happening overnight by itself that the pages look like this, that's clear. But when you have finished that and you think, okay, that was enough for today, take a step back from your pages and from your project, from your desk, and then come back a little bit later and flip through the pages, exactly like I'm doing that here now. That is also something that I would do without the camera, without recording a tutorial. Flipping through the pages, and then I look if I like what I have here and if it feels like enough. If I think, okay, here for the grungy journal, I could add a little bit more, like grungy stenciling or also some of the techniques that I have done before the stenciling, then I will do that. And that's exactly what I have done without you, as like a little homework. Let's call it like that. I have stenciled a little bit more to the pages with exactly the same techniques that I have shown you in the last video, because I thought I want to have this a little bit more visible. I don't know if that's a good word. I guess not, but I wanted to have this like a theme for the journal. And as I also told you in the very beginning of this series, I have left many of those pages white. That is because I have printed a printable from my Etsy shop to some of the pages. This is the STEAMY Floral Smoke printable. I will link that down below for you so that you can check that out. There are junk journal pages, journal backgrounds, and an ephemera pack available in my Etsy shop. And I have decided to print the pages to the photo paper. I mean, this is a photo paper that has only one side of this special photo surface, and on the back there's some kind of normal copy paper. And of course, I could have printed another printable to this back side, but I've decided to leave that white. Why? That is really easy because I wanted to show you different techniques that you can do even if you don't have special paper in your stash. There are many people out there who are just starting with junk journaling, and you say, oh, I'm a beginner, but I don't have like interesting papers. Yeah, I read that very often, that you say, where do you get all of your interesting papers? And I want to show you that you don't necessarily need interesting paper. I mean, paper that comes to you that already is interesting. You can make your own interesting paper, just with some easy techniques and some simple mediums, and you can use what you have. Yeah, you can go to your trash can, take out all of the papers that you have there, and with really easy things you can make your own interesting papers. And to answer the question where I get my interesting papers, I would say that is a thing that takes really much time. I'm just wondering why my pages are all upside down. Something really crazy is happening here. I think I have taken them out the wrong way from my storage box. I'm sorry. I think it's a question of time to collect interesting papers. And please don't be confused or overwhelmed when you have just started junk journaling. You can't start with a stash full of interesting papers. Yeah, that's not possible. If you perhaps have done something totally different that has nothing to do with paper. Of course, you can't wake up in the morning and you have a stash full of interesting paper. Yeah, that's not possible. But I think there are many possibilities to create your own interesting paper. Of course, if you want to have, for example, like this, book pages or interesting images from magazines or something like that, you have to collect that. Yeah, there's no other way than collecting it and run through the world with open eyes. And I'm sure if you once have dived into this junk journal mode, then your brain gets into that as well. And when you go through your daily life, you will find so many things that you can collect. Yeah. You go to a restaurant and suddenly you find something there, a napkin, or those, sometimes in restaurants there are those paper placements below the table, not below the table, that would be strange. I'm sorry, below the plate where your food is on. And you see those things with totally different eyes once you have come into this mode of junk journaling. And then, of course, you can ask or you can just take it, because those, especially those paper placements, they are thrown away after you have left the restaurant, and you can take those things with you and collect them. And over the years, you get many papers that are interesting. But I want to show you that you don't necessarily need that. For example, this is just a normal copy paper, some stenciling. This, I guess, it is some kind of a baking or packaging paper. Just a normal paper, some stenciling. Both of these are totally different, aren't they? The color is different, the stenciling is different, the pattern is different. Yeah, everything. It's not the same paper. This is some kind of baking paper. This is just a book page. Okay, we can imagine you don't have books. So then let's take this one. This is also a copy paper. In this case, the back side of my photo paper. And this is some kind of translucent paper, like how do you say that? Like vellum. But this was, I guess, from a chocolate packaging. It was for protecting those little chocolate thingies that were in there. But look at this. This is just normal paper. Yeah, this is nothing fancy, but it gets fancy when you take out some tools and some mediums and make it your own. This is nothing that comes overnight. The same with waking up with a stash full of paper, but I think that this is not so difficult to learn how to make your own papers. Here you can already see something that we are going to do today. So this is something that I have done in my German video with the stamping. Here I will explain in a second why I'm doing that and how I do that to create interesting things to your papers. And something that I also want to mention is some of you have asked how many pages I have for my journals, and some of you have also asked oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me, please. How many pages from my stash I have next to the printed pages from the printable. I could go ahead and count those pages, but I have decided that I don't want to do that because I think that makes no sense. When I compare both of these, I can feel that this is way more pages, more paper than this for the clean journal. The grungy journal will become thicker in the end. But why is it important that you know how many pages I have here? I mean, it's not that I don't want to count for you, yeah? Please don't get me wrong. I could count them and I could tell you I have so many pages here and so many pages here. But why? Because I want to show you the different steps, how I make my journals. And I want you to be able to see something somewhere and transfer that to your own possibilities, to your own things, to your own amount of papers. And in my eyes, it makes no sense to tell you how many pages I have here, because when you start your process, perhaps you are totally blocked by counting your pages. And this is only one example, of course, for this problem. Perhaps you are totally blocked by counting your pages and thinking, okay, Luisa has, for example, 50 pages in her journal. I need 50 papers as well. But why? If you only have 25 papers because you are very new to junk journaling, or your stash is not so big like mine, where's the problem? You can do what I'm doing here in your own style with your own amount of papers as well. Where's the problem? So, of course, I don't mean that bad, but I want to change your thinking a little bit. If you ask for so extremely detailed details, do you know what I mean? It's not important how many pages I have. It's not important how big my pages are, because for you, it's only important to know how to handle this. If you have 100 pages, you can make the same journal as I'm making here in your style with your amount of pages. Yeah. So that's the reason why I don't like to answer to those questions, because I want to encourage you to find solutions for your own situation on your desk. I hope that makes sense. So today we are going to stamp to our pages, and what we are doing today is still part of creating an interesting background for our pages. I have taken out the stamping mediums that I have for my clean journal color palette and for my grungy journal color palette. I will quickly go through that with you so that you know what I have on my desk here. So for the clean journal, we have frayed burlap, pumice stone, hickory smoke, and lost shadow. And I have taken out those colors that I have, like ink pads and oxide ink pads. So let me show you. The Distress Oxide Ink frayed burlap, that is the only stamping medium that I have from this color. Then we have pumice stone. I have the oxide ink pad here as well. From Hickory Smoke, I have the Distress Oxide ink and the archival ink pad, because I want to talk about water-soluble stamping mediums and waterproof stamping mediums today as well. That of course makes a really big difference for the next steps that we are going to do in our journals, and perhaps you want to have that in mind. And Lost Shadow is on the color palette as well, and there I have the oxide ink pad and the ink pad, so I have taken out both. For the grungy color palette, we have frayed burlap on both color palettes, so I have that here. I have shown you that before, the oxide ink pad. Then I have forest moss and wild honey oxide ink, and last but not least, ground espresso and brushed corduroy that we have here. And what I have also taken out is my StazOn Jet Black ink pad. You could alternatively use, sorry, that was a little bit far away. You could alternatively use an archival ink as well, of course. When we start here now, we have to think a little bit about what we want to do in the next steps. Because when we stamp with water-soluble ink, and we do something with wet mediums in the next steps, we should perhaps have that in mind now. The same thing with the stenciling the last time. I mean, all of this is not waterproof because we have used the Distress Oxide inks here as well. And even if you would use Distress inks, it would also be not waterproof. So if you think, okay, I want to stamp a lot now so that my pages are finished then, and later on I only want to write in my journal. Yeah, after stamping I want to build signatures, and then I want to make a cover, and I will sew the signatures into the cover, and then in the next steps I only want to write in my journal. Then it would be absolutely no problem to take water-soluble inks because nothing else will happen there anymore rather than writing. But if you perhaps want to use some other wet mediums, then you should have that in mind. In the next videos, we want to use some gesso, some coffee as well, and other wet mediums like texture paste and such things for some like mixed media background dish thingies. So I have in mind that when I stamp with my oxide inks now and I add other wet mediums on top, that the result can change. Yeah, the result what I'm getting today here. Yeah. Okay, so let's start perhaps with both of these pages. We have seen those in the last video, I think. No, I think this I made out of camera, but this you've seen in the last video. So I'm just putting my other pages a little bit out of the way to have some space. And I like to do this in a really like time-saving and efficient way. Hopefully that's the same word in English like in German. So that meaning that I lay 2 pages here in front of me and the rest of my pages are here. I have 2 journals in front of me now. On the left side, the clean journal, on the right side, the grungy journal. But of course, you could do the same thing with only one journal as well, yeah? Imagine this is your journal that you have here, or this is your journal. You could do exactly the same with only one journal. You could take out 1 page and then the next one, or you could also do this on 2 pages simultaneously, because that, of course, saves some time as well. The first stamping technique that I want to show you, I want to do with the, I'm so sorry. I have already opened this and now I'm a little bit afraid that everything is coming out here. I want to take the eccentric stamp set by Tim Holtz and Stampers Anonymous. The number is CMS 448. And for what I want to show you, this stamp set is just perfect because it has so many like tiny numbers and yeah, like little words, and also those like round elements are really, really cool for this technique. And one of my absolutely favorite stamps is also from this set, that is this one, this Cool 5. I've already mounted that to such a little acrylic plate. These plates are also by Tim Holtz. They come in different sizes, and I really like them for such a stamping technique with those tiny stamps. These are the 3 smallest plates from the set. I think they come in a set of 8 or 9, I think. And they are really, really handy for those small stamps, and they have this grid. If you want to line up the stamp really exactly, then you can do that with the help of those lines here. And yeah, so let's start perhaps with this one here. It really doesn't matter which stamp you use for the stamping, but the position of the stamp, I guess, is really important. This first technique that I want to show you with those tiny stamps is massively inspired and influenced by Mali at Mali Design. If you don't know her, I will link her channel and her Instagram and everything down below in the description box so that you can check her out, and please check her out. If you don't know her, you have to see what this woman is doing. She is so incredibly talented. I'm a really huge fan of her work and of her as a person. She is such a cute woman. We had some really lovely chats about a collaboration that we are going to do in the near future, so you can be excited about that. I'm excited as well. And I have done with this technique that she is doing very often exactly the same thing that I want to show you with my video series here. So I have seen what she is doing with those tiny stamps, and I was inspired, and I thought, how can I transfer her technique to my style? And that's exactly what I'm going to show you today and here on those pages. She uses those tiny stamps for the edges of her papers. Not only for junk journal pages, but also for cards and that stuff. And she stamps the most incredible tiny details to the edges of her projects. And yeah, I have thought, okay, when I have something like this, where already something has happened on my pages, like stenciling, distressing, and that stuff, how can I include those tiny stamps to the edges of my pages to make them like a part of the background? So I'm doing the following thing. I choose a tiny stamp with some numbers or writing, or you can choose whatever you have. You could also use a bigger stamp and only stamp only portions of that to get a tinier stamp if you don't have those tiny stamps. And then I look to those areas where already some medium is. Yeah, I don't pay attention to this white space here, or where only a light kind of distressing is, but I'm looking here where already some layers are on top of each other. And then I'm choosing a color. Let's start perhaps with Hickory Smoke for the clean journal, and I'm using the archival ink. Because here it's already relatively dark and I want to get a little bit of contrast. But you could use the oxide ink or the distress ink as well, of course, or any other ink pad. So then, when I have the ink on my stamp, I'm going to stamp exactly to the edge of the paper. And as you can see, let me just put some more like numbers and that stuff there so that you can see better what I'm talking about. So I'm going around this edge here with different of those tiny stamps to build more layers in this area. And of course, you can do that as extremely as you want. And you could also use the same stamp twice and just stamp it half like this, or just go here into the edge, or use the second generation of the stamp just by not inking it again. And when you have that, you can think, okay, what is that? Because this now looks totally interesting, doesn't it? If you compare this to what Marley does on her channel and in her videos, you would probably think, hey, that's totally different. Yes, it is, because she includes the stamping into her process of creating the whole page, I would say. When she is planning a project, then she thinks, okay, here shall go a pocket. I want to have something like collaged in the background. Then she is doing all of those steps after each other, and while she's doing that, she stamps those areas here. I'm doing that a little bit different, like a preparation of my pages, yeah? I will not add a pocket here today, but what I'm trying to say is, you can take this kind of, yeah, technique and transfer that to your own style. I mean, all of the YouTubers out there are sharing their techniques because they want that you try that out. And of course, we are allowed to take those ideas and transfer them to our own projects. And the same, of course, is possible here. I can't see it. And here, I am also doing something that I have learned with the time. I've used forest moss oxide ink here, and I've stamped exactly to this line here from the stenciling. Can you see that here on the top there's much white, and then there's like a straight line because the stencil ended here, and that looks sometimes a little bit strange. But with those stamps, you can break that, and you can construct the illusion that the stenciling is coming up here and it doesn't end here, because the stamp is now part of the stenciling, especially because I've used the same color like I've used here. I mean, this is a mixture of two colors, but forest moss is in the stenciling as well. And when I stamp that here with the same color, I can get this connection. A really similar thing you can see here on the bottom. We have the same problem here. The stencil has ended here, and that looks strange. It looks like something is missing here. You could put some washi tape, some scraps or something like that here, but you could also take a stamp and stamp here. Why not? Here, this is the bottom of the page, meaning like the ground of this scenery here, if you can call it. I think scenery is not the right word, Louise. It's like scene, but not scenery. So everything that is on the bottom can have a little bit more weight, I would say. And for that, we can use black for stamping. So let's take the archival ink. As I said a few minutes ago, you could also use a StazOn jet black or whatever you have. And let's just put a row of stamping here to the bottom in black. And then you will hopefully see that the page gets like, yeah, like a base or something like that. And this problem with the stenciling has gone, because now you can't tell that the stencil had this strange line there. Here on the edge, there's the same thing. Can you see this little like strange ending here? And you can do exactly the same trick there as well, just by stamping something tiny there to this area. And I also like to go in some kind of an L shape here. Just like this. Now we have this L shape that is a little bit like broken by this folded edge here, this folded corner of the paper. And I will leave this folded because that looks interesting. Yeah. we have something like this here on the top as well. Can you see that here's also this little line that came because of our like random stamping, stenciling the last time. I'm so sorry. I just have to take a sip of my drink. And of course we can do something here as well. But let's think about how to do that without destroying the design. We have black here. We have forest moss here. And perhaps it would make sense to stamp in black here as well, so that we have this diagonal connection of the stamping and like a frame. We have the L here, and we could do something L-ish here as well, to have like a broken frame. A frame doesn't always have to be completely a rectangle or an oval or something like that. So let's think about what could we say. Ooh, the pointy finger perhaps. What do you think about this? Is that too big? That could work. Let's place that exactly like this. Because, let me take it away. Can you see this strange rectangle-ish area here? When I place the pointy finger here, it's covering this area, and the finger here goes a little bit over this stamp here. That gives it a little bit more space than if I would stamp it like this. Do you know what I mean? Haha, let's do that. I think that will look really great. And of course, it's completely up to you how you do that. I mean, it could be a little bit strange when I talk about creating backgrounds and talk about so tiny details like I've just talked about. I mean, this is really a tiny detail. It's like different things are falling to the pages and then they make sense. Now this area looks totally like planned for me. Hopefully for you as well. And it's only because of thinking about those tiny details and those tiny areas. Now, this doesn't look strange anymore. Does it? I mean, yeah. Of course, you don't have to think about those things so extremely, but it helps. It really helps. Let's make another example. So when I think I have my page here and I think, okay, that is enough, or I don't have any more ideas for this page, then I take it, put it to the bottom here of my other pages, and I'm searching for the next page that I want to use for more stamping. So let's see which one could be interesting. So here I've done exactly the same thing. Can you see that? Here's this strange line, and I have stamped the stamp directly below this line to get this illusion that this is not finished here, but that it goes to the bottom of the page and that this is one. I think that turned out really great. Let's see, what else do we have here? I'm searching for something. I mean, that would be possible on every page that you have, but I'm searching for something that is really like eye-opening and where I can explain what I'm doing really well. So let's take, for example, this page. And for the clean journal, we can let's take this one for the clean journal. Here, the first thing that I realize here is that this area looks a little bit weird. That came because I've used one stencil here and the other one here. and they are overlapping here in this area. But those areas are totally great for what I'm trying to do here, because those overlapping areas give you the most interest, I would say, if you put something on top here. So this is of course not on the frame of the page, but that doesn't matter. You can search for any other interesting place on your page for the stamping. And here I think I want to use a butterfly, because the theme of my journals will be butterflies. I know that I want to add embellishments, pockets and that stuff with butterflies into here. So this stamp comes from this set that's called Flutter by Tim Holtz and Stampers Anonymous as well. CMS 294 is the number, and there are lots of really gorgeous butterflies in this set, and I think this one has a really good size for here. So which color shall we use here? I think we could try frayed burlap to get a little bit more of a color variation. So let's take this and let's ink up the stamp. And now I will put the body of the butterfly exactly here where both of the stenciled patterns are meeting, so that this is exactly on top there. Hopefully that makes sense. Just like this. This is still part of the background, yeah? Please don't be confused. Please imagine that here later on is, for example, a pocket, or here are some splatters with white acrylic paint or something like that. This still looks like a beginning stage, and it is exactly that. So I want to do something similar here on the grungy page as well. And we can also use frayed burlap, because we have frayed burlap in the grungy color palette as well. So let's search for a place where we could stamp this butterfly. And I think here on this page there are more than one possibilities. For example, here in this area where this hole is in the stenciling, it would look perhaps great. So that it looks like the butterfly is in between of those flowers. But I also like this position here, placing the body exactly here to this line, and we have this other stencil pattern here as well, so that we can connect both of these with the help of the butterfly. But then I guess we need a third one to make the page complete. 3 is always a good idea and a good number. Ask Barbara at 49 Dragonflies and she will explain you why. She's talking about irregular triangles very often, and it's really impressive what she is doing with those triangles. I've learned very much by following this like triangle rule. So let's try that here as well. So I'm placing this one here, as I said, with the body to this like strange line. And the third one, why have I chosen exactly the same stamp? Why, I mean, it would have been totally good to choose another butterfly, not the same. But now we have to go, I think, with the same one for the third butterfly as well. Otherwise, that would look totally strange. So let's perhaps go more to the top of the page. And if this shall become an irregular triangle, like Barbara is teaching us, I guess we would have to take only a portion of the butterfly, and perhaps we can do that here so that we can layer the butterfly on top of this stenciling here with the wild honey ink. Distress oxiding, I have to say, to be correct. Yeah, that looks great. I think that looks great. And to be honest, this is a little bit too boring for me at the moment. So I think we can add some more like numbers or something. And let's use perhaps this line here, this strange thing that happened here on the bottom. That could be an area to stamp. Let's see, I want to have something like solid here on the bottom to make sure that the contrast is really great. Perhaps we can take this one but upside down, why not? And let's use black here to make sure that the contrast gets really nice. And I'm trying to get the angle of this strange thing here to make sure that it looks like it is one. Now I'm stamping the stamp in the right direction to get a little variation. Just like this. And suddenly it looks like, this nearly looks like a washi tape or something. Perhaps we could add a tiny little portion of this here to the edge. Like this, so that it goes the whole way through. And perhaps you can see that here we have a line. The line came from this ink, and we can see that this is darker, but it is a line. And the stamp itself has a line as well. But can you see this line here as well? That's going here through the body of the butterfly. The line is like reversed because it comes, because the stencil has ended here. But here is something like a line. And we already have the butterfly here with his body on this line. So why not stamp a little bit here along this line to make this like a cross here on the bottom, where this butterfly is sitting where approximately where both of those lines are meeting. I want to use something smaller for here because I think I don't want to have that too massive, but I want to have it black so that it connects with this thing here. So let's perhaps take this one, but like this. And perhaps something really tiny, like this little text. Here. Ooh, that's not so straight. Ah! Okay, so that's something that kills my nerves. This is not totally straight. That's not so good. Because this way, now it looks like it's falling to the left. But perhaps we can, can we do something to, oh my goodness. I think I will perhaps later on glue a scrap here and stamp again, because this is strange. It has to go like this, but it's too far to the left. But I think, yeah. How can I show you how to solve that problem? I mean, that could happen to you very easily. How can you solve that if you don't want to glue something over this? Because now we are learning how to stamp, and I don't want to take out a glue stick and glue something over this, but we can solve that perhaps in another way. I'm just thinking, let's just take an acrylic plate that is long enough. And let's make this really extremely. So I'm taking the acrylic plate and I'm inking up this edge. And I'm using this as a stamp. And now I'm trying to get exactly the right angle. Pressing this down, hoping for the best. And now I would say the problem is solved. What do you think? With having this straight line, this looks not so weird anymore, because your eye is thinking that this is the angle of the whole stamping. I really like that. This is relatively interesting, I would say. And to make this look not so weird, we could perhaps also add another line here. We have this here that looks like a line. We have this. Why not take a third line? And I will at the same time stamp to my clean page here, because the plate is too long. Why not? Let's do it like this. Yep, I like that. I really don't know why, but I like that. And I want to have something of this along this line here on the bottom as well. Just like this, to bring another connection to this. I like that. And now we have this here, and that's great, because we can use that as another starting point for something here. But here I want to have that parallel to the edge of the page, because the left one is the clean journal, of course. And this wonky thing is already relatively like not clean. So perhaps that's great. It's great. Very cool. And another thing that you can do, of course, is thinking about water-soluble and waterproof inks and the effects that you could reach with those. So let's take another page. For example, this small one where we have stenciled with oxide inks in the background. So the background is water soluble. And here let's perhaps take this strange paper here. This originally was a paper that I have used to distress some cards. I have used that to protect my table. That's why here are those really like strange rectangles. But let's take that. The most of this, what's on this paper, is, I guess, water soluble, because yeah, this could be oxide ink, I guess. But those splatters are waterproof, I guess, because that is probably white gesso mixed with water. Let's see. What do we want here? I want to use another butterfly, and I want to start with this page of the grungy journal. I think I want to use ground espresso again because I want to go into those like lined areas again, like we've done it before. I look for those areas where those lines are meeting. And that's exactly where I'm positioning my stamp. And that is not so much contrast. But it's a background. Louisa, don't forget that it is a background. Let's take another butterfly. And let's perhaps stamp him here. Like this. And I want to have a third one on the bottom. I really like when 3 butterflies are in a row, but of course that's personal preference. Just like this. And now what we could try now is we could spritz some water, and I already know what will happen here now because I have done exactly the same thing for the German video. So I know that when I spritz water now, the effect that I'm looking for will get not so extremely, and that's why I'm taking out my brushed corduroy oxide spray. I'm shaking that up. And I'm opening the bottle so that I can take out the nozzle relatively easily in a second, because now I want to spritz water, and I'm assuming that a little bit of the ink will run down here, and I want to connect those butterflies with a little like grungy watercolory effect. So I'm spritzing only here to the top butterfly, to his right bottom wing, just a little bit. That doesn't have to be much, and then I'm letting this run down. And as you can see, the paper is giving not so much of the ink. Yeah, it's like a little bit like waterproof. But here you can see a tiny little amount of ink, but I want to have that way more grungy and way more extremely visible. So I'm taking the oxide spray nozzle and I'm going here to exactly this area with the nozzle where I've just spritzed the water, and I'm realizing that this paper soaks the ink really, really extremely. That's a little bit crazy, but that is junk journaling. You have to live with what you have, and you have to find solutions for the problems that you wouldn't have without junk journaling. But as you can see, the oxidation here gets relatively intensive with the spray. I want to add a little bit more water here so that it gets a little bit dissolved here, like this. And now I will dry that so that we can see the end result of the oxidation. I think this turned out absolutely amazing. If this isn't grunge, I don't know what grunge is. The paper, what is this? This is normal copy paper, I would say. I'm not totally sure, but I think it's normal copy paper. And as you can see, the oxidation of the spray, again, this was brushed corduroy, gets really like turquoise, and I really love this oxidation. And here on the paper, the ink color of brushed corduroy comes out really extremely, because normally I would say brushed corduroy is not that orange, but on this paper and with the mediums that were already on the paper, it gets this like bleeded effect, and I really love that. This looks absolutely fantastic. Can we do something like this for the clean journal as well? I mean, when I stamp with oxide ink and I spritz water and add the spray, I get grunge. Yeah? How can I do that here? The background of the page here with the stenciling is water soluble because it's stenciled with distress oxide inks. The impression of the butterflies here is really loose because we've spritzed water and the butterfly got loose. What can we do to get a clear butterfly here? Because for the clean journal, I think it's better to have a clean impression of the butterfly. So I want to try to stamp with black, but with a waterproof ink. Not with distress oxide ink or distress ink, but with archival ink in black to get a nice contrast, to get a crisp and clean stamp impression to my page. Here. Like this. Then I will quickly go over that with my heat gun to make sure that this is really dry, because this is vellum and the ink needs a little time to dry. And I would say this is perfect for a clean journal. It looks really elegant in my eyes. But what if I want to use water here as well? Why not? This ink is now waterproof. And the background is already really smooth and really subtle. Why don't I spritz a little bit of water here to use the same technique like here, but the other way around? I think when for the clean journal, the background is loose, that's not the problem. It doesn't destroy the clean look. I can already see that I don't like this so much, but it would be a possibility. Let me just dry that and then I will explain what's in my head. Have I just said that I can already see that I don't like it? This is really strange. When this was wet, I thought I don't like it, because it looked like the stenciling was destroyed, and I thought I have spritzed too much water in that moment, and the stenciling was like not so visible anymore. This illusion that the butterfly is sitting on those flowers was gone in my head. But since this is dry, I'm totally in love with this. This was just one of those, light bulb moments. The oxidation is still here. Can you see that? Here, the flower is still complete. I don't know if my camera can catch that. That looks totally weird in the camera. What is that? I don't know how I have to hold that so that you can see it. This flower here is totally complete. You can't see that in the camera. It's really like chalky, but it's complete. In the camera, it looks like it is completely destroyed. Oh, I hate those moments. I can't show you that. That is totally strange. But I think this effect is totally great on the vellum, even if you can't see it completely. But what I'm trying to say is, if you don't try things out, you will never know if you like them or not. This was like, yeah, in German we would say Paradebeispiel. What is the English word? Like an example that is like an example for everything. I don't know the English word. But when I spritzed this, I was like, oh my goodness, that looks totally strange. And when it was dry, I was like, hey, what the heck? Here on the bottom, you can also see parts of the oxidation that came through after the water was dry. and I couldn't see that before without the water. This gives it a really interesting effect, even if this is now not as clean as it was before anymore. Yeah, but I could always take an iron and iron the paper to make it really flat again. I mean, with vellum we get this effect, of course, when we add water, but you could still iron that to make the page itself, the surface of the page, more clean again. But if you don't try something like this, you will never know if you like it or not. And this was, yeah, ein Paradebeispiel. Yeah, so I will go on with those techniques that I have just shown you. I will do that to some of the other pages as well. And then in a second, I will show you what I have done so that you can get an imagination of how that would look if you do several of those stamping techniques to several of your junk journal pages. So here I'm back. I've finished my homework with the stamping, and I would like to show you how far I came with this technique and how this looks. While I have done this, I have asked myself how to know when this is finished. How can I realize when this is enough? I thought I can imagine how my pages would look in my journal later. For example, those 4 pages here could be in the journal in a signature like this later. Yeah, they would like overlap a little bit. This would peek out here, this would peek out here. They are different sizes. And I can imagine how this would look, even if this will probably be not the order that the pages will have in the signature later. But this general feeling I could get with something like this. But how do I know that it is enough and that I perhaps can stop this and do the next step? Especially if you are a beginner or if you have never done this technique with the stamping, you could ask this question yourself as well. And then I came to the answer. I mean, for me, it's the answer. And it's something that I would like to bring to your mind as well. It is not important to know when this is finished. Even if you have pages where you have stamped nothing, like on this baking paper, I have left that out because I know that stamping on such a paper is really difficult. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to have stamping on it. Yeah. Why? I can also have a page in my journal, in this case in the clean journal, but that works for the grungy journal as well, of course, where nothing is stamped. Why not? And I thought, no matter how much I have done, the important thing is that I like what I have done. That sounds a little bit like obvious and perhaps also a little bit kitschy, but I think that is the main important point, that you think, okay, what I have done here is something that I like, or perhaps you find some pages where you think, okay, it's nice, but perhaps not the right thing for my journal. And to realize that, for me, is the most important thing about this stamping technique and yeah, the look that it can bring to your journal backgrounds. And to make such an experience, I think, is also a really big part of junk journaling in general, and this process of like not feeling as a beginner anymore. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes when I read your comments, I have the feeling that many of you see themselves as beginners. And I think it's really important that you come over this stage, because in my German videos, I have often talked about that because the German community is not so big yet. The German-speaking people have discovered junk journaling much later than you as the English-speaking community, I would say. Of course, there are also English-speaking people who have just started, but in the German community, there's often this word beginner. In German, that's Anfänger. And in German, it even sounds a little bit more rude, I would say. And I always say in my German videos that I don't like this word. And no matter if it's said in English or in German, I really don't like this word, because when you find junk journaling and when you think, okay, junk journaling is something interesting, and when you think I want to try that out, in my eyes, you aren't a beginner. Yeah, I think with junk journaling, there can't be beginners, because when you have found out that you want to try it, then you already have some skills that you need for junk journaling. Because junk journaling is so much more than putting paper into a cover. We are trying out so many different techniques, so many different mediums, that you, I think, only can realize that junk journaling is something that you want to do when you already have skills. Yeah, for example, you have learned how to work with watercolors and you have painted with watercolor for years. Then you have those skills, but what you have to learn is probably where to get paper and how to put everything into a journal. But you can include your skills of using watercolors into your junk journaling. And that being said, I am sure there are no beginners with junk journaling, even if you see yourself like that. And I want to change your mind a little bit. It's not like following a specific tutorial, following what I'm doing here step by step. Some of you have written they want to follow as close as possible. Of course, that is a really big compliment for me and my content here on YouTube. Thank you for that. But I think the main point is to get inspiration and then try to rearrange that a little bit for yourself and for your own process. Depending on how much time, how many papers, how many mediums and that stuff you have, your process can be totally different than mine. And the main point is that you realize that you already have skills that you now can put into your junk journaling process. What I also want to mention is that what we have here for the clean journal and the grungy journal is still like a beginning stage of this whole process of making a journal. What we have here now, so I will now flip through the grungy pages, is still something that is, yeah, like the first steps, like baby steps for making a junk journal. But what we have here can also give you new ideas for what you want to do next. I would like to give you some examples, what I mean with that. So for example, on this page, perhaps you remember that I have folded the page here because originally this paper was too high for my page size. So I have folded that here to make it on the one hand more interesting and to get the right size for my journal pages. And I have put my stamping here in a straight line, as you can see, but not directly next to the fold. Yeah, that is very different to what I have done on the pages, because on the pages, I've mainly on the pages. This is also a page, Louise. On the other pages, I'm sorry. Here, as you can see, I've stamped that directly to the edge of the paper. Here's not so much space than here. And I have done that because when I had the stamp in my hand and I was like, okay, I want to press it here, I thought, why not put the stamping a little bit more down so that I later on can go to my sewing machine and sew along here in between of the stamping and this edge here. And this is what I'm trying to say. I have never done that before. Yeah, that is something that came to my mind when I have stamped this stamp. I have not thought about that, but and I have never done it before, but that came to my mind when I wanted to stamp here, and that only could come to my mind because I had this here in the beginning, this tiny detail of folding this. Then, of course, the stenciling that gives a little bit more like a whole picture in front of my eye. But with this fold here and the stamping here, I could come to that idea. If I had taken this paper and just cut it here and the fold wasn't here, I would probably not have come to the idea to do it like that and to sew here later. And there are several different other pages where you can see those things and where you can think, okay, this is a beginning thing, but I can do so many things on those pages and they will fall to your brain. Those ideas, I guess, they will fall to your brain when you look at the pages and when you look a little bit with like, you know, like your brain, like your brain was like a little dog and someone comes with a sausage in front of your nose and you can smell it, yeah, and you want to have that and you have this smell in your nose. Do you know what I mean? I don't know how to say that in English, but perhaps I can explain that here on this page. Here, for example, it's like, this is totally weird. It looks totally weird when you see it like this. And when you don't have in mind that this is still the beginning of creating a page and a journal, then this could be like, what the heck is that? I want to throw that into my trash can. But if you now perhaps imagine, look here, this frame here with the stamping looks like something planned, yeah, something that is already like finished. This thing here from the stenciling flows into the stamping a little bit, and these areas here are connected with each other because the stamping goes a little bit into this inked area here. But here, this white space, that looks totally strange in my eyes. But now, please imagine that this is your chance to see that here could be something else. A pocket, for example, a scrap, a collage, or whatever. Please imagine that we cut this paper down. I mean, I will not do that. That will be a page, yeah, but I could take a similar paper and I would put that here as a pocket. Now, I think it looks not strange anymore. That works with another paper, of course, that is as well, that is perhaps not so straight. I think I like not so straight look like this here, even better. But if you cover that up, this white area, you can see that this probably gets like finished. And if you then imagine that this was a pocket and you put a journaling card in here that has, for example, a collage on top that matches the colors of the background, then this page would be just perfect. Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is those things that you are trying here now and deciding if you like that, please don't give up too early. Yeah, if you think, hey, I can't understand that so good. What is the meaning or the sense behind something like this? Please don't give up too early, but go on with the next steps. Perhaps those steps that I'm showing you in this series here. And then later on, when you have done the other things, you can decide if you like it or not. Or if you already think, ooh, that's great, I like it, then everything is okay. Yeah, but perhaps you can decide that a little bit later when you have other things here. And those things now, I mean the stamping here now, looks perhaps on some pages relatively obvious and massive. Later on, when those pockets and belly bands and that stuff are on here, all of the embellishments are in the journal, then this gets really to the background and you will not see it so extremely in the foreground like now. And this will become part of the whole thing, of course. Another thing that I have discussed with myself was what is the sense of white in a journal. Yeah, as you can see, in the grungy journal and in the clean journal, we have much white. I have explained why I have done that, and the reason is that I can show you different techniques with different mediums where I need a white base. So I have lots of white pages here. But what can we think about those pages here? Look, this is from a butterfly book, obviously, and in the inside you can see it's relatively plain and white. The distressing only got to this area here to this edge, but it's not so much here in the middle like here. And then I thought, is grunge necessarily always brownish? I think not. If this was a whole book and you would have this in your garage or somewhere and you forget it there, and after 40 years someone takes this book out of your garage, I guess not all of the pages would look like this because they became wet, for example, or dirty, but not all of the pages in the same way. And that's why I thought this is also grunge, even if we have much white here. And I'm also trying to get over this, like, many people say we don't need white pages in our journals. I think many of you think that you have to cover all of the white up to make it a junk journal, but I don't think it's necessary, because this can look great as well. Imagine this page, you would call this page finished. And later on in your journal, you would have this white space. This is just perfect to write a poem, or if you want to use your journal as a diary, for example, you could journal about your day here. And with the journaling and your handwriting on this white space, the page would be just perfect and finished. Yeah, but I think in our heads there's something like, I see the white and I think, ooh, it's white, there has to happen something, but why? Yeah, I don't see any reason why here has to happen something now. You can leave it, and if you later on think, okay, I don't want to journal here, yeah, then make something else. Take a paper. For example, this one, I've realized that this looks really gorgeous here. And you could turn this very easily into a pocket, or a similar paper, of course, if you want to use this as a page. And you would have the perfect page. Here you have your pocket. You can put your journaling card or something else, a tag in there. And you have a page without white. I mean, yeah, except this here from the stenciling. But you would have covered up this massive white space to get a place for a journaling card or another ephemera. This is also something where I thought, okay, crazy. I often have book pages like this, relatively glossy, with colors that are relatively intensive, like this yellowish orange here. And normally I would cut around the image here to use only the image as a page. For this journal, don't ask me why, I have taken out the whole page and I've not cut it down. But this can also be something that can give you new ideas. When I had this here and I was in my stamping process, I thought, here's so much black, why don't I take my stamps and stamp a frame around here? And now, in my eyes, compare it with this. This looks naked and not finished and, yeah, like torn out of a book. And this, no matter if it's in this direction or in this direction, of course we could do both, this looks like it belongs to this picture and like it has to be exactly like this. And this could be a finished page for me. Why not? Yeah, of course you can add things. You could add a little pocket here, for example, to make this a background for a tag that you want to put into the pocket or whatever. But this could also be a finished page. You could use this as journaling space. It's still enough space to write something. But this idea of stamping around here came from the page. That's also something that I have never done before. The same like with this page here, with this fold here that I have told you a few minutes ago. What I also tried out is, and I'm not so happy with that, to be honest, to stamp portions of the butterflies here and there. I have tried it out on this Braille paper. Here you can see a little portion of the butterfly and also here on top. I thought that could bring more grunge. And I really like how this stamp impression came out because of those white dots from the Braille paper. That looks relatively interesting and I can imagine to have that there and to like it. But here it looks a little bit like the butterfly is dead. I don't know why I have this thing in my head, but sometimes when you go for a walk, for example, and then it can happen that you find a dead butterfly. And often the butterfly is not complete anymore. Yeah, I have that very often in the summer when I go outside, that I find portions of dead butterflies. And I think this is something that reminds me to that. And perhaps because of that, I have this association. But that is also something, if I don't like that, where's the problem? I can still put something over this, just take a little paint or something. Ink wouldn't work so well because you would still see the stamp impression. I mean, the ink through the black ink through any other ink that you would put there. I think that would come through, but acrylic paint or something can solve the problem. But what I'm trying to say is this is also something that I can use to learn something. And realize that I don't like that. I have tried it out on this paper. I don't like it, so I will not do it on another paper again. Here, for example, I like it better because here the butterfly is also not perfectly stamped. You can see something is missing here. That's because of the paper bag. It would have been better if I had used my stamping platform, but I thought it can work, and then I realized that it didn't work, as you can see. But here, for me, it's not so strange that here parts are missing because the outline of the butterfly is still intact and you can still see that it is a butterfly and it looks not like dead and only a part of it is laying here on my page. Yeah, I really like how the stamping, especially the black, came out on the oxidation of the ink that we've added before. And yeah, this page is one of my absolutely favorites because especially on those darker areas, the black ink looks really interesting in my eyes with this texture here. Perfect grunge, I would say. And also on the printables, I have stamped to the edges here where we have the distressing. I followed the same rule like I've told you in the beginning. Look where already some layers are and stamp exactly there. So I have done that here in this L shape, again, like I have explained. And I think this comes out really, really nice, even if this is black. First I thought on the printable I don't want to stamp with black because here is not so much black in the printable and I thought it could be too massive. But then I have done it on those areas where the other ink was from the distressing, and I think that makes the black a little bit smoother. And as you can see, I've not pressed so hard with the stamp so that it gets a little bit like distressed as well here on the 1913. You can see that, I think, very good. It's like a little distressed, not so clear. You can also reach this effect by putting not so much ink to your stamp, and this way it looks not so black and not so massive. We have done those techniques in a specific order. You have seen the series and you have, I think, seen the first video, then the second video, then the third video, and so on. And perhaps if you want to follow along here, you have done those steps after each other, like I have shown them in my videos. But what I want to mention is that you, of course, always can change the order of those techniques that I'm doing here. Of course, you have to have some things in mind, like waterproof, water-soluble ink, for example, what we have discussed in this video as well. But you can always change the order, or you can also go a step back or 2 steps back with what you have already done. Meaning, if you think, oh, that's nice, I have stamped here, but I realize now that I want to have more distressing. I want to have more grunge. I want to take my pages again and put them like this, like we've already done it. Put some water here, and I want to spritz more color. Of course, you can always do that. You can always go a step back and do a technique that you've already done. For this specific journal here and for the mediums that we have used, you of course have to have in mind that some of those mediums are water soluble, meaning if you have stamped a butterfly to the edge of your page, or here on the bottom on the top, for example, if you would spritz water from here to the page and then add more medium, as soon as you add water, this could be destroyed and it could be dissolved and get really abstract. You have to have those things in mind, but you can, of course, always change the order of what we are doing within this series. And I think junk journaling in reality, yeah, I mean, what you see here is my reality, of course, as well. But, I mean, I'm doing nothing that I won't do in the reality. That would make no sense. You see what I do without the camera as well. But for this series, of course, I had to cut my process like into portions. And I want to have a video series that makes sense for you to watch and to work through. But in reality, do you know what I mean? When you have watched the videos, it can happen that you mix the order of the techniques that we've done here. And I think that is part of the junk journaling process. If I wouldn't record this series, this would probably go way more chaotic than you see it in this video series here. This might seem to be completely organized because it goes like, we are going to do this step, then we are going to do this step, and then we are going to do this step. But without the need of recording this for you, this whole process would probably be relatively chaotic. I mean, in my real life without the camera. And I think that is normal. Yeah, when you make a junk journal, I think you can't always say, first I'm doing this, then I'm doing that, then I'm doing that. But if you have a little bit of experience with making junk journals, that is not a problem for you. Yeah, when my process gets chaotic, that is not a problem for me. I think it's the opposite thing. I'm enjoying this like chaotic working a little bit. There are days where I'm totally like my nerves are killed, but but on other days I like that I can say, okay, this is enough. I don't want to do that anymore. I can do something else that also makes sense for my journal. I like to hop from one technique to another. to also boost my creativity a little bit with that. But I think for such a video series, and especially if you are a beginner, it is relatively helpful to follow those single steps and to, trust the person who is telling you what you can do to make a junk journal. So what I'm trying to say is, if you now think, I can't handle that, I don't like it, I don't like this, what she has there on her desk, please trust this process, yeah? I think there are many like tutorials out there where you get specific techniques, a specific project, like for example, I mean on my channel as well, yeah? Like, for example, I say to you, let's create some journaling cards. And then I show you a special technique and I show you an idea how to make that journaling card. But you can't, perhaps, if you have not this experience with junk journaling, bring that into this whole context of the journal. You perhaps can't see what is the sense of making this journaling card, because you can't see the journaling card in the whole finished journal, because it's only a part of it. Perhaps another YouTube creator shows you how to make interesting pages with your jelly plate, or you get instructions for how to fold your papers, or how to use distressings, or whatever, that are all like pieces of a really, really big puzzle. And I can totally understand if it's hard, if you say it's hard to put that together to get a whole picture of what junk journaling is. I guess that is possible when you have finished 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 junk journals and you have a little bit of experience of this process, and if you have experienced like how everything can come together, then you will understand that. So if you call yourself a beginner and if you have never done something like this before, please don't give up too early, and please trust what we are doing here, trust this process, and don't give up. Just do it, and in the end you can decide if it's good for you or not, if you like junk journaling or not. Okay, so this is what we have now. I hope you could get some little tips and tricks perhaps from this video. If there are any questions, please let me know in the comments. I will do my best, as always, to answer that. And I hope we will see the next time. Have a very creative day. See you.